First of all, I watched Happy Campers last night. It is a very touching film. How did this story come to you, and why did you want to share these people's journey through this tough time that they go through?
Well, thank you for having me on, Jesus. I appreciate it. And thank you for watching the film. Um, yeah, I grew up in that part of the world. Right now I'm in New York City, but I grew up in Baltimore and the whole Eastern Shore, there's beach towns and campgrounds, and that's kind of where you go for vacation, and and they go to Chincoteague Island. It's famous for its wild ponies. They just had this big pony swim the 99th year, last week. But it's very mellow and it's very family oriented, very affordable. And I grew up going there, but I hadn't been back there in a while. And I went down to take pictures one winter and I wandered into this RV park. And I thought, wow, this place is amazing. These are like the original tiny houses. Only Dwell magazine would have a heart attack, because they're like kitschy and they're just campers that have been added on to over the years. Some have wheels, some don't, some of them look like three-bedroom houses, but they were all so fun. They were all different and they all had, crab decorations and pelicans in the yard. And, there literally was one house that had pink flamingos. And I just thought, this is so great. And then it wasn't until 10 years later that I wandered back in there to see what it was like during the summer. And I just fell in love with it and I moved in.
Wow.
And then once I was in there, I thought there's something really magical here that to I need to get to the bottom of, and then maybe I'll capture it. I'm not sure. So I didn't film for the first 2 years.
Wow. Um, as you got to know the people there, how tough is it to kind of take yourself out of it and document this without a bias? Because what they're going through is a really tough struggle that we've seen throughout the country now, people being displaced, chosen family being separated. How tough is it to film something like that?
Very hard, but being going through it myself. I mean, I was out filming and my husband was packing up our stuff, so I had a lot of empathy. And we had only been there a couple years, and I couldn't imagine what it was like for people who had been there 30 and 40 years, and there were quite a few of them because it was very generational. Like somebody's grandpa would have the place and then they would give it over to the kids and then their kids would take it. And so there was a lot of that. So it was really hard. It was also hard to give people space because I think, you know, they were trying to have their last summer. They were trying to just hold on to like the last bits of their paradise. And because I knew how special it was to them, I tried not to be too intrusive, but I did a lot of like, we're going to want this. So, if it's okay with you, I'm going to film this, barbecue. And, sometimes people said no because they just wanted their time. And I was as respectful as I could possibly be. Um, and some people just turned and talked to me and poured their hearts out, which was amazing. So I was very lucky.
Definitely. And, as you get to know these people's stories, is it a daunting task to make sure that their stories get justice and you give respect to these stories? Because it seemed, like you said, that these people were so connected to this land and this place, and it was so generational that, you needed to do well for them, to make sure that their story gets told.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sort of feel like that's the job of all documentaries, is to do well by the people that are in them because, I, I didn't make the film, they did, so I, I, I feel a huge responsibility to make sure that as it's as honest as it is, as funny as they are, as not taking itself as seriously as they don't take it as serious. This is not proper English, but you know what I mean. Um, so, I work really hard to keep that parallel to the actual place and especially with this film, because it didn't really have some big beginning, middle, and end, and there was no big reveal of something. Um, I wanted it to be an experience. I wanted it to feel like you just spent the summer there too. So that was how we made a lot of decisions. It was a very, very hard edit, but I had great people to help me.
Definitely. Since it was such a tough edit, how did you feel going through this process? Because you lived there, you documented it, you edited it. It just seems like you kept going through this over and over and over again. So how did it affect you?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is it's a double-edged sword because like I get to live through it again. I get to visit with people that I loved every day. Um, but I also it's going to be really hard to let it go.
Mhm.
So, I think because I'm in it and I'm concerned with getting the film out and making sure people see it and making sure they understand it and hopefully like it. I think that's kept my mind occupied. And when that's gone, I fear for myself.
Definitely. It could be a daunting task to, put this behind you, especially when it's so close to you. When people see this and experience this last summer, what do you hope they take away from it?
I hope that they just think about what's important, because being there made me think about that. I mean, I was there before COVID hit. Um, the summer that I filmed was 2019. So it was right before we all got thrown into lockdown and the world completely changed. Um, and I know that there was a lot of talk during COVID, of people thinking about, well, what family means and what friends mean and what it means to have great neighbors and a great community. And I feel like the world has just slipped right back into all the same crap. Honestly, I feel like we just forgot and started to, order online again and, DoorDash is coming. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're back on the hamster wheel a little bit. Um, and it would be nice to just have people think, oh, yeah, those people had it right, because they kind of did. They taught me a big lesson about what really matters. And um, I hope it's a nice experience for people to have when they watch the film.
Well, congratulations on this film because it is very touching. It is very heartwarming. I felt that sense of community. You did a fantastic job documenting it, and I hope that these people feel seen and heard because it is a very extraordinary film.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.